find the screen share. No, don't record yet.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, how do I?
Okay.
Hello, fellow snappers. I'm going to talk a little bit today about photographing in public, street photography, and talk a little bit about theory and practical approaches to photographing in public. Um, so let me share my screen here. So I I call um, photographing in public spaces, civil abstraction, and I'll get to that in a minute. How I arrived at that term. Um, but generally, I shoot downtown Nashville quite a bit, and nothing heats up until 4 or 5 on into the evening. And a lot of times I'll go downtown like early and hang out at the library, great downtown library, grab a couple of books, big coffee table books of mainly like classical paintings. Things like um, paintings from the Louvre, paintings from the Prado, those kind of, and just look at classical paintings. You can get a lot out of that as far as composition and style. Um, so, classical painting is like this is David painting. These painters worked in the studio and they would work out um, the poses of everything. And you can kind of see, kind of a theme, a composition theme is there's a central figure in the middle with the action going on around there. And again, these painters used models and posed them, and did a lot of sketches to get to that point. And to be clear, shooting on the street, you don't have that that everything's in a chaotic movement thing, and you're not posing things up, which just kind of makes it special, I think. So here's another example um, of so, here's another example of a classical painting. The kind of the central thing is the woman at the feet. And the central thing doesn't have to be dead center. It could be off center. Um, then the action's going on around her. Um, here's another example of that. This is central figure in there, a lot of action going on. You can see there's a lot of good diagonal stuff. The spear, the hand, the other spear coming down, the dogs coming up. Um, for some reason, there's a guy in the background holding up a bear's head. No. Um, but yeah, there's just a lot of action going on around a central figure. Here's another Delacroix painting. Um, the Bark of Dante. Got Dante and um, crossing the river Styx, I guess. But yeah, a lot of swirling action around him, and him in the central figure. Um, and again, these were all created in the studio um, with models and worked out compositionally. Another David, or not David, Delacroix painting, the Assassination of the Doge. Another big painting with I really like this kind of a lot of action around the central figure of the Doge being assassinated, and then all this action. And when out on the street, especially Lower Broadway, there's a large cast of characters, and I just love shooting these kind of big scenes, um, with these paintings in mind. This is another Delacroix painting, young girl in the graveyard. This is kind of one of my holy grail images in that I try to put the head up in the sky and lower the horizon. Just compositionally, it's really nice for portraits. especially on the street. Um, Another great painting, like the 1800s wore on into the mid-century to the end. Um, Painters got out of the studio, were into the street, and it really, what they were doing really relates to street photography because they were shooting real life things. This is, one painting I really like because it's in a bar. I shoot in the honky tonks a lot downtown. A lot of action here. There's a mirror behind her with a reflection. I like a lot of reflections in my photos. It's really really great painting. I could talk about this painting for an hour. It's got a lot going on in it. Um, Another Manet. Um, just these big scenes of convivial um, people partying. So when you see it in town, you kind of get in your head, and when you're on the street shooting. Um, this is a painter I really like, Jean Barad, French painter in the 1890s. I like shooting full figure people in movement on the street with there's some action in the background. Again, head and sky kind of composition. There's another Jean Barad, swimming with the hat boxes, and she's kind of the central figure. It looks like a really windy day, a lot of action going on around her. Um, Another Jean Barad. You like women with a hat carrying hat boxes, but people in movement on the street and full figured, is I try to recreate that look a lot on when I'm out shooting. Um, Here's an example of a Avedon photo, a famous photo of Bob Dylan. Again, kind of symmetrical, full figured. This is again one of my holy grail photos. So I keep it as I'm out shooting. Uh, so yeah, like I said, the painters got out of the studio, more onto the street. Very, very, very much relating to street photography. This is a Calavante painting. You can see how he starts to break up space, um, and you see that in street photography quite a bit. This is a Lee Freelander famous um, photo from the 1950s, but you can see how he's breaking up space, kind of more abstraction kind of composition. So here's one of my big scenes downtown, shooting through the window of one of the honky tonks, um, and just very layered because you're getting reflections. There's another one, a lot of reflections in the window, people on the street outside, cars, just a lot going on. Um, some of these big scenes like this. Um, so here's an example of looking at paintings and then seeing it on the street. This is another Delacroix painting. You can see how she's in that cave there and how the light kind of shadows coming across her eyes. So when you see that in real life on the street, there it is. That it kind of makes the photograph. I mean, if it was just a straight photograph and his head didn't have a shadow on it, it would kind of be a ho-hum photo, but it kind of takes it to another level. Um, but that's just an example of seeing paintings, and then when you see it on the street, just go for it. Example of the big scene that chaotic. You can't control these people. Girl on the leash in the center, um, and then all the action going on around there. Um, Another example of that is a family band downtown. Um, this little kid getting a picture taken with one of the buskers. Just again, you can't control any of this stuff. You've got the dad with the hands over here with taking the picture. You got little brother over here with his hand down his pants. And just things happen as you're out shooting. You can't control, but it's kind of magic when it all comes together. So why don't we talk a little bit about civil abstraction, how I got to that term. And it's very much based on a sociologist that wrote quite a bit in the late 50s and early 60s, um, and Irvin Goffman, and he really examined how people behave in public spaces in modern society. This is one of his books, Behavior in Public Spaces. Um, and basically, he came up with a coined a term called civil inattention. And it refers to how people behave in public. He really examines that in this book. Um, so, civil inattention involves the unobtrusive and peaceful scanning of others so as to allow for neutral interaction. This is a method of retaining one's personal boundaries and by being aware of one another without imposing on each other. Civil inattention makes privacy possible within a crowd. So that's some of his basis of some of his theory on public behavior. So to be really clear, photographing in public is a violation of civil inattention. A photograph destroys civil inattention, creating an abstracted form. Civil abstraction is a way of talking about the act of photographing the public order in the urban environment. So civil abstraction's ambition is to regenerate and decipher our shared spaces. Desire to reconstruct reality in shattered forms is civil abstraction. So here's some of my photos that just, really, this is through there's a giant claw machine. People are lining up to do it. It's through the back window, so you get a lot of reflection and chopped up space. You've got the street preachers in the background and these guys taunting them in the foreground. Um, there's the downtown, there's these prayer bros that run around and pray for people, praying for this guy playing on the street. This was the Anime convention, people waiting on the corner there. And like juxtaposition, you got the kid in the stroller, the lady in her wheel thing. It's just good juxtaposition of things. This was New Year's Eve. The street preachers. This guy was taunting the street preachers, um, and it was like I don't know. It's like it was 3 below. It was super cold out that night. And for some reason, this guy whipped his shirt off, and it was like ice cold. And good thing he had a koozie on his beer. So, in short, photography breaks through the conventions of civil inattention, allowing for civil abstraction to be the hidden language of chaotic theatrical performances that occur in public spaces. So that's kind of some theory behind some of the stuff I think about when I'm shooting. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about approaches for street photography. What different things you can do while you're out on the street shooting, and then wide variety of stuff, and you make up stuff as you go along here. But I just want to share with you, you know, um, some of the ways I approach, people um, and scenes in public. So, um, here's a guy that I posed. I asked him if I could take a picture. Again, I moved him to where his head was in the sky and got the shot. Um, a lot of other times it's a total drive-by shooting. I mean, it's I'm coming by him, and bang, hit the picture and move on pretty quick. Um, so that's kind of two different ways to achieve the same effect. But um, this is another case where I um, asked the guy if I could take a picture and moved him over into that space because of the angles of the background and sky, and got the shot. Um, so yeah, you can either talk to people, people that are out performing, or you know dressed crazy or attention seekers. Man, you ask them to take a picture, and they're happy to do it. That's kind of they're there to be seen. So you're just feeding that um, that desire. Um, Another pose picture. This is a street magician downtown, and I'd shot him off and on, and became friends with him. And at one point, I was like, "Can I take a picture?" And I said, "Pull out the Joker out of your deck." So, and then he did this, and then, that was a shot. Um, this is the one that's just total drive-by. She's coming down the street, talk about an attention seeker, and bang, shot it and moved on. And unposed, but she saw the camera and posed. So that's a lot of people do that. As soon as they see the camera, they hit their mark. Um, Another big scene. This is in the Apple store, looking out on Lower Broadway with the dad and his son in the foreground. Another big scene with a central focus. Um, this is a case where um, you all kind of always got to be ready. And this is a case, waiting for the light to change. And this woman had this flower in her hair, and the rebar sign cast this really great shadow on her back. And this, just have to kind of keep your eyes open, and always be ready. And early on, I developed kind of a mantra of this, and it's like, you got to be quicker than that. And I'd say that over to myself all the time, just kind of to always be ready. And I was basing that on, I don't know if you remember the old it was a State Farm insurance ad of fisherman goes, "Oh, you almost had it. You got to be quicker than that." So I just got to keep that in mind as I'm shooting, because um, you just never know. And then, again, this is another case where I was just coming down the street with the camera, and he's sitting there, and it was total drive-by. I, I I shot it. He saw me, and kind of smiled. Um, and it looks posed, but it's not. Another case where this is one of the bucket drummer kids downtown. I came around the corner, and he was standing there handing out that money. And I mean, it was just like and I had my camera ready, not knowing what I'm going to see when I come around that corner. There he was, and got the shot. Again, looks posed, but it's not. Um, Another drive-by. This guy drives his bike around downtown. Um, and again, you never know. Just as you're coming down the street, it's so crowded, so many people. You never know what's going to pop up. And again, I turn around, and I've got my camera. She sees the camera, and she's again, she's out for attention seeking, and you're delivering it for her. Um, you know, One of the things I love about street photography, and how it relates to arts and painting, is that every every form of art, um, classicism, uh, portraiture, surrealism, Dada, abstract expressionism, all those schools, you can go on, the list goes on and on and on. All those things can be found. Minimalism, all those things can be found in street photography, and sometimes in the same image. Very, the image is very Dada, very surrealist kind of thing, um, and yet portraiture. So yeah, street photography can really encompass a lot of those isms in art. This is Street Preacher. Um, Yeah, light. I shoot late, like late in the afternoon into the evening, and the light just gets really awesome. Um, this was another total drive-by. This woman was posing for her boyfriend, and this Batman character had sneaked up behind her and was photobombing the photo. And a photo I just shot and moved on as I was running. One of my favorite photos is this kid walking around downtown, and uh, I asked him if I could take a picture, and he copped this pose. It's such a weird photo. Um, this is a photo that I asked permission, and told her to hop up on her bike, and she did. And I didn't really until I got home. I was focusing on her and talking to her until I got home and downloaded. I didn't see the clock. It was like I don't know how I missed that talking to her, but there it is. This photo got me kicked off of a Reddit subreddit, street photography subreddit. Long story, but a lot of controversy, and then they just kicked me off out of this group. Um, this is a guy who was moving into I guess some decoration into one of the honky tonks. He had this all these speakers. Again, I kind of keep my eye out ahead, so you're kind of looking at what's coming. And I saw him coming down the street, and it gave me time to kind of get in position and get the shot. Again, late afternoon, golden hour. This is an example of this great light that comes out. Um, Little Spider-Man kid costume. I hit this with a flash. He had his face painted green, and I really wanted that to pop out. Um, so um, I kind of go back and forth. I usually run with a flash, but use it probably a quarter of the time. Um, I get out on Sunday afternoon sometimes and kind of clear my head and do Jefferson Street or DB Todd area, sleepy little, Sunday afternoon thing. This guy was just kind of sitting there on a bench. Again, I asked permission and posed him. Um, so shot with the Ricoh GR. I shoot with the Ricoh GR and I shoot with a Sony A7C camera. So all these photos are kind of a mix of both those cameras. But here's an example of what I was talking about of getting in position. When people are waiting for the light to change, people queue up, 30 people deep. It's a big crowd. So you're standing across the street, you're able to kind of scan those people. And if there's anybody interesting in there, as the light changes, you've got time to get into the street and get in position to get the shot. And um, this is a really good example of that. I saw her from across the street and kind of looked at the spot where I wanted her to be, and then got myself or where she was it's kind of a ballet of getting things lined up, getting, you want to get them in a certain spot to do it. As I'm shooting on the street, I got to keep my eye out for cool cars, not just people on the street, but kind of look up and down and traffic's moving pretty slow, so you can get in position to get a shot or people waiting on the light. But there's always, people out, especially Sunday afternoon. People get their cool cars out and drive around. Um, Another example of that. It's one of those fins. This is a funeral home in Bordeaux. They have this old hearse out front. I just wanted to really make it kind of spooky looking. um, that was the effect I was after. And a lot of times, and when I'm processing and thinking about it, I'm trying to build drama, and that's kind of my mantra in editing photos. You want to take a photo that's got some interest, and then kind of build on that to build up the drama in it. Another um, car picture. So I get out off of Lower Broadway quite a bit. And I kind of had to force myself several years ago to do that. But as you're driving around town, you see things. I mean, you probably all do this. See things that you're like, I need to stop and take a picture of that. And or, something you drive by almost every day. You need to stop, take a picture of that. Well, at a certain point, the light's going to be perfect, and um, and this was on Dickerson Road, the Genesis Adult Toy Box. But again, the light was just perfect, and I'd driven by it a number of times and wanted to take a picture of it, but um, Just have your camera ready in your car, and when you see that light on that thing you want to take, get out and shoot it. I go to a lot of punk rock shows. I really started covering the Murfreesboro punk scene. Um, and these shows are usually like a little small venue. There's no stage, so pretty much the audience is right there. So the audience kind of mixes with the band, and it's a lot of action, great action. And for shooting, I mean, if anybody that's shot concerts and music things, you're down there in the pit, trying to shot. It, it's in this situation, it's a lot more. Hang on, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Hello?
can hear you.
Okay, I
Yep.
thought I lost my thing.
Right.
Okay, yeah, you're more in the action, in these kind of situations. This was over in East Nashville, punk band. I'm basically standing right there on the stage, taking the picture, with the band. So it really affords you some access. Um, this is the Cobra. Um, it's one of the Murfreesboro punk scene girls, um, over in East Nashville. But yeah, a lot of stage diving and action in the audience. Um, this was a show out in Madison, little cement block building. I think this is at the end, over in Ellison Square, a band called Discount Cemetery. Um, I think this is at the end also as a death metal band. This is a drummer. And after the show, I got him to pose for me there. And the Murfreesboro Punk Kids. Um, and another thing I love to shoot is the Pride Parade. It's just really, really great. You know, everybody's down there to be seen, and and you know love getting a picture taken. And I generally shoot this with a flash. I don't know. It's bright sunshiny day, and I just lay on the flash pretty hard. Mainly because it's just a colorful event and bright. Um, so I usually get down there a good hour early before it starts, so everybody's kind of hanging out, and it really affords you to be able to get with people and pose and shoot. Um, Protect the dolls. Um, and the thing about drag queens, they know how to hit their mark. I mean, you wave a camera in front of them, and they've got their you got their signature look. Um, this wing guy, Frankenfurter. I go to a lot of car shows. I love car shows. This is a car show out in Rayon City. Um, there's a big car show that's coming up here. I think in September, out at the Wilson County Fairgrounds, the Redneck Rumble. Um, but yes, um, yeah, this is also at Rayon City. This is a kid that drove his car up from Mississippi to be in the show, and I took some pictures of him with his car, and then I had him sit up on top there, and kind of that was the picture. I went to Memphis. I shot a convention for a client at the Peabody Hotel, and it was one of those long days of like starting at 7:30, shooting grip and grin stuff until about 8. And after that, I just went out and hit the street, Beale Street in downtown Memphis till about 3 in the morning, um, and shot Memphis stuff. That's the little building that's on top of the Peabody Hotel, and behind them is the where they keep the ducks. I guess they call it this the duck house. Um, the famous Peabody ducks. Another window on Beale Street, I believe. Elvis. You know. A lot of characters out on the street, especially after midnight. This guy Donna D. Um, and This is one I got imposed. Why had the two cigarettes? I don't know. Um, but this is a guy in Infinity Dollars. He kind of bounces between Memphis and Nashville. I've shot him in Nashville quite a bit. He's got some sort of economic theory of how to get free money. And it's really complicated. He's got all this printed material that he can hand out. Um, but this is like about 1 in the morning in Memphis, and I asked him if I could take his picture, and for some reason he put his pamphlet in there, and just the way the eye came out really worked really well. Love going to county fairs, small county fairs. This is Putnam County Fair out in Cookeville, um, Wilson County Fair. We're in fair season right now, and of course the state fair. A lot of good action. But my favorite is the Putnam County Fair. It's small in scale and kind of laid back. Um, Prize chicken and horse girl, and the Putnam County Queens. And then I think a Saturday always the day ends with a monster truck. It's like these little kids down there. And I was out there several years ago. It rained hard all day, and right before the monster truck thing, um, sun came out. It was just this muddy field, and um, I was down the infield. It was just I shoot with a flash, and so I don't have a picture of any of that, but it was just mud flying at me. Was caught by the flash. It was really really fun shoot. Went to New York. I only took the Ricoh GR when I went to New York, and um, didn't really shoot a whole lot of stuff. But um, this is over at B&H. Luis Menendez, who hangs out there, famous street photographer from way back, in front of the holy mecca of B&H in New York. It's in Chinatown, through a window, an acupuncture place, Flatiron Building under reconstruction. I think this was on either Madison Avenue. I believe it was Madison Avenue. There's fruit sellers out there. Just really like the way it caught this fruit fruit treat kid. Every year I go out to Muddy Roots. It's out north of Cookeville on a farm, and a really great music festival. I mean, people dress out. It's punk rock, metal thrash bands back to back for 3 days. Goes from you know the morning until like 4 in the morning. It's a long haul of but a lot of action. Um, just they have these big tents and stages. This is a Belushi Speedball show. Crazy show, and they spray foam over everybody, dump water all over everybody, and just make a mud pit. And make everybody get down on the ground to the worms. There's just a lot of just big shots of all this action. Um, it's really crazy. But a lot of good opportunities for portraiture. Everybody's there dressed up, and um, there's like a long promenade down the center of the place, people coming up and down, and um, everybody's pretty affable to getting a portrait taken. Yeah, a couple of years ago there was a lot of goth girls, but the last couple of years they all turned into clowns. It's kind of the trend now. Cool couple here. It's one of the guys in the band. Um, it's a lovely scorpion belt. A lot of trans and non-binary kids out there into punk rock. Um, Again, another little portrait on the fly. This is later at night. Feral kid right out of the slam pit. One of the Murfreesboro um, punk crew. But I generally I go out every once in a while. I found this Ricoh 500G, and it's kind of the grandfather of my Ricoh GR. It came out in like '74, a film camera, and loaded up with Tri-X. And yeah, there's the Muddy Roots. It's got a really bad light leak um, that kind of an interesting effect. But yeah, that's a film photo. The film photo, the light leak. It's like the way this kid's eyes are kind of funny. This kid, um, this is him a year later. He's all grown up. uh, yeah, it's an all ages event. So there's a lot of kids running around, high school kids and groups of them. Um, this is a event over. I think it was um, Black History Month, Juneteenth event over on DB Todd, and uh, I guess this is a promotion kind of thing, or it's like that little girl down there. Again, it's one where I hit it with the flash just to flatten everything out. Um, this is one of the performers, being the goat. She's a rapper. Um, and I kind of stood over by this building, and it was a little bit backstage, and I was able to wrangle people over there because it was just made a great backdrop. Um, another thing I've been doing is looking at the schedule for concerts, either the Bridgestone, the Ascend, um, or the Nissan Stadium, and looking for concerts that have bands and acts that where the fans will really dress up, and especially at the Bridgestone, before the show, they'll queue up, down the street and around the corner. So everybody's just kind of hanging there for an hour and a half waiting to get in. They're bored, they're dressed up, they're ready to go, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, um, and they'll again, a lot of these younger people have grown up taking selfies with their cell phone, and they know how they look on a camera, and you wave a camera in front of them, and they hit their mark. Here's another one of those example of that. I believe this is a Florence and the Machine show she was attending. And you can see how people are all lined up there on the left. Um, and yeah, you just walk down the line and kind of take your picture, kind of take your picture, and take your picture, and just it's magic. But yeah, just kind of keep an eye out for those bands. Have fans that really dress out. Yeah. Um, this is a fanfare or CMAs. Just a couple downtown. People come into Nashville. And the thing about downtown and tourists, those people, they're spending what $500 a night on hotels. All they spent the last month picking out their outfit, that they're going to wear. Um, so you give them some attention with a camera, and it's just magic. Um, this is another thing that I really like to watch for and do is take pictures of people together that are strangers, but look like they're together in a photo. And back to civil abstraction is, things look different in a photo. Just that's the nature of the beast. But here's these two guys that are total strangers, but they're in a photo and look like they're hanging out together. I just kind of look for that. It's an interesting play. Um, again, I'm coming down the street, people see the camera, and I'm walking toward them, and they're like, hit their pose. It's the case of this guy here. Um, this was a couple of weeks ago. Some lady down there in her MAGA hat. Um, people flying signs. Um, this guy was sitting there and he had his head down. Just like the way that looked, his bald head. Um, nice effect. And look, this kid had a giant rig. And again, this is another drive-by. Just came by and shot the shot and moved on. Um, but I guess he checked it out from the school media lab. He's out trying it out. Um, this is a case where I saw this young woman playing guitar. I think it was some church group downtown, and I saw it from across the street. And there were some of her partners or the street preachers or whatever were on either side of her. And so I'm coming across the street and I couldn't get the shot because these guys were obstructing. So I walked right up and held my camera down really low between their legs and got the shot. Again, trying to get her head in the sky. Um, so like I said, as you approach something and you kind of see at the distance, you can kind of set up your angle as you get into the scene. Um, this was from a couple of weeks ago. Also, this guy was walking around town with his Polaroid and being really glum. I think he was like he wasn't getting any action. And uh, again, I was coming across the street. Didn't ask for permission. I just shot him. Then I walked up and I was talking to him, and he was kind of like, well, this is not working. And all these girls came running out of the honky tonk right to his left, yelling, "We want a picture taken. We want a picture." Oh, he's so happy. He's like, "Oh, you got some business." um, so that's my presentation. If you want to dig deeper into theory and philosophy of street photography, Jeff Dyer is a good place to start. He's written a couple of books called The Ongoing Moment, and then the street photography of Gary Winogrand, where Jeff Dyer's not a photographer; he's a writer. I like reading books on photographies that aren't from photographers. Susan Sontag on photography is another example of that. Um, but yeah, deep examination of photography and particularly street photography in both these books. So that's my presentation. Go out, hit the streets, shoot a lot of pictures. See
Thanks,
you on the
Michael.
street.
Appreciate it.
Hey, okay, yeah.